Hi, today we're going to learn how to make a paper mache plant pot. First, we need to make paper mache clay. I found a recipe at ultimatepapermache.com. It requires 1.5 cups of damp toilet paper, 1 cup joint compound, and 3/4 cup of glue all. First, I got pieces of toilet paper wet in some hot water and let them soak. Then I dried out the paper as much as I could and measured it. It should end up looking like this. Then I mixed in the joint compound and glue. And I mixed it up until it looks like this, kind of like icing. Then, to make the armature for my pot, I traced a circle on some cardboard and cut it out. Then I cut out a cylinder that fits the circle, taped it together, and then taped the circle to the bottom of the cylinder. I poked some holes in the bottom so that the soil could drain. Then I get out the paper mache clay that we made, and it really does go on just like icing. I put a good layer on the armature and let it dry overnight. Then I got some acrylic paint and painted a design. And it ended up looking like this. That's how you make a paper mache plant pot.
What's the difference between really, really, really good movies, the ones you watch again and again, and just okay movies that you've maybe only watched once? Often the answer comes down to story structure. The best movies usually feature characters in search of a clear goal who face obstacles along the way. Today, we'll be outlining our very own short film and learning some of the tricks of the trade that professional screenwriters use for full-length features. You can follow along with me as I outline a short film and work on your very own story all along the way. Okay, let's start with step 1. Brainstorm story ideas and characters. For me, the first step is actually the hardest part. You have to think of a compelling character who needs something, and what they need is what I'm going to be calling their goal. If you have a story idea already, that's awesome, but if not, I like to just start with thinking about a character or a goal. Your goal could be anything. It could be getting into art school, saving up to buy a new pair of shoes, saving the family business, anything. For my short story, I decided that a fun goal would be to find hidden treasure. Sure, it's kind of an overdone trope, but I like it. The goal is clear, and I really appreciate that. Also, I think it's just kind of a fun one, so why not? Next step is characters. I've been thinking, and what about two 15-year-old girls? A science whiz and an athlete. They could be best friends since kindergarten who are starting to drift apart, and this hidden treasure whole thing is all that's bringing them together. Perfect. We have a character, we have a goal. Now it's time for the outline. Before we start outlining, it helps to have a general idea about what screenplay format actually looks like. Movies are unofficially broken up into 3 acts: beginning, middle, and end. If you're a fancy screenwriter person, you can call them Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. I've gone ahead and written all this out into what's called a beat sheet. That's a fancy screenwriter way of saying outline. You can use this beat sheet to help think about your own short film. I've also written down some major story beats. A beat is like a small storytelling unit, usually composed of a few scenes. A screenplay outline is a list of story beats, hence the name beat sheet. Anyway, back to the acts. Acts are super important because they give you a way to think about your story structure. Act 1 is all about setting up your goal, introducing your characters, and that takes about 25% of the movie. Act 2 is where the characters decide to actually work towards their goal, but then everything ends up being way harder than they ever thought it would be. And Act 2 takes up about 50% of a professional screenplay. Lastly, Act 3 is all about wrapping things up. It's the final showdown with the evil antagonist or the reconciliation with their best friend, and it normally shows the character's life going back to somewhat normal, even if they're changed for the better. Okay, now that we know about acts and story beats, let's get to work fitting our story into that beat sheet. We're going to start with Act 1. First, you need to introduce your characters and their goal. Because film is a visual medium, you get bonus points if you can use images instead of dialogue. I need to introduce my 2 characters and the treasure hunt. A treasure map is nice. It's a good visual way to do that, right? Okay, that sounds perfect. So, characters stumble upon a treasure map. Great. Now, Act 2. We have to figure out the twists and turns. Let's look at our beat sheet template for some ideas. So the first thing that needs to happen is a character needs to start working towards their goals. Okay, so what if they try to read the map, but there's no words on it? So one of them thinks about adding heat to a lemon juice message and try to read it that way. Okay, that works, and now they have a place, Lakeland Valley. That's where the treasure's hidden, but they don't know where Lakeland Valley is, so the athletic friend calls her teammates to see if they know where it is. But no one does, so now we move on to the next story beat. False hope or false failure. So in the middle of a movie, there's always this midpoint. It's my favorite thing to do when I watch a movie to try and find it. This is why none of my friends like going to the movies with me, but it's totally fine. Anyway, what would the midpoint look like for this film? Probably the false failure midpoint would look something like they couldn't figure out how to follow the map. And let's make it even worse, because the girls have been drifting apart. What if one of them wants to give up and the other one doesn't? So let's say the science whiz gives up, there's a big fight. That sounds perfect. Now, what's the next step? The next step on our beat sheet is back on track. How do we get the story back on track after either the false hope or the false failure of the midpoint? Mine was a false failure, so I need some way for them to find some piece of missing evidence. So the athlete's still working on it. What if she keeps on searching and accidentally stumbles upon this major piece of the puzzle? She could visit her grandmother, who knows where Lakeland Valley is. Or better yet, what if her grandmother grew up there? Perfect. Let's try that. So we finished Act 2. We're almost there. We just need Act 3. So for Act 3, that's when we figure out how we want to end it. And on my beat sheet, there's 2 final beats. There's the final challenge and then happy endings / character growth. Let's start with the final challenge. It's really fun to give your character that one final battle where they're almost there, yet there's this one huge obstacle in their way. You'll notice in a lot of professional movies, there's often a former friend that turns on them or a former rival coming to their rescue. Think Star Wars, A New Hope. In my movie, I think I'll kind of go the easy way and just have them realize that their treasure map actually leads to a chicken coop. But the chicken coop has a loose floorboard with a golden bracelet inside, and so ta-da, they've found the treasure. Now it's time for the very last story beat, happy endings and character growth. The best stories have characters grow by the end, and so I like to ask myself, how have my characters changed for the better as they tried to reach their goal? I think my character should realize that the treasure isn't actually theirs in the first place. It belongs to the young couple who owns the farm, and so my main characters decide to give it to them. That way, my 2 main characters found their original goal, the treasure, but they also learned to value someone else's happiness more than their own. And they've changed for the better. Oh, and yeah, they're back to being best friends again. Word of warning about this whole character growth thing. You don't want to make your ending feel like preachy or overly emotional, but I definitely trust you to walk that fine line. You'll do amazingly in your own outline. So now that we finished this happy ending, we've actually outlined our own story. We made our first beat sheet. Yay! If you decide to take your short film to the next step, you'll need to actually write the script. But believe it or not, with the outline and the beat sheet, your hardest work is already done. You know your characters and you know their journey. You're already well on your way to your first short film screenplay. how I win.
So first things first, what size zipper pouch do we want to make? This one was inspired by just wanting to keep my pens and my highlighters together in my backpack. So I used my favorite pen as my inspiration. So our next decision that we're going to make is our fabric. Now, as you can see here, this is a woven material. This is some woven denim. And by woven, I mean that it is woven on a grid. There's an X and a Y axis that the fabric is woven together on. A knit, on the other hand, is really stretchy. It's usually what t-shirts are made out of. And I wouldn't recommend it for this project. Remember, stretchy means spicy. When you're learning how to sew, don't do knits yet. For this project, we will also need some type of ruler or straight edge to measure things, some thread. This can be the same color or a contrasting color, some scissors, and a pen or pencil to mark things. You will also need a sewing machine that is threaded up and ready to go, or you can hand sew this project. It will take a little bit longer, but it is absolutely possible to do so. So here we have a centered zipper. This is the most cheap and basic version of a zipper you can get, and it has a non-separating end. So that means that these ends are permanently clasped together. So if you think of jackets that open up at the bottom, those are separating zippers. This is not. The differences between this and like an invisible zipper is just the way that the coils are oriented. So for this project, we are going centered zipper. Just keep it simple. So as you can see, I have these pieces cut out and they are face to face. So this is the right side, this is the wrong side of the fabric. This piece is cut at 5 inches by 8.5 inches. And this is going to be just a tiny bit more shallow than this bag. I cut out 2 small contrasting zipper tabs that we are going to cover. These are optional, and if you do decide you want them, they will be 2 inches by 2 inches, and you will need 2 of them. These we are going to fold in half and finger press, just like this. And they will come back into play in a few minutes. So right now I want to prep my zipper for how long it needs to be for this project. And to do that, I'm gonna cut it. Now these are my cutout pieces for the zipper pouch itself. And all I'm going to do is line them up to the edge and cut it. Since this is a plastic coil zipper, it cuts through pretty easily. So to get started, we are going to prep our zipper and add the tabs that we want on there. This is optional, you don't have to do this. And if you are skipping this, then just skip this step. But if you are using them, you want to grab one tab that is folded in half. We're gonna line it up to the edge of the zipper, and we're just going to sew the edge, catching the edge of the zipper tape. Like this. Most of this will be covered up, and it's going to give a cool little contrast. And there we go. We have a zipper with 2 little covers on it. It'll look pretty good. If you want to test it, go ahead and do so. Next, we are going to be making a zipper sandwich. So grab some pins. Also, binder clips work really well for this if you need those. We're going to use one of these pieces of the zipper pouch. And with the zipper laying down, face up, we are going to put the right side of the fabric, which is the printed side, facing the face of the zipper. So it's going to be facing away from you and down towards the table. So remember, the face of the zipper is facing the printed part of the fabric. This is going to be the outside. It seems a little confusing. Once you have these pinned, and remember, pinning perpendicular to where you want to sew is the most effective method because you can pull the pins out as you go. Now I'm going to lift my presser foot so it's all the way up and the needle's up. We are going to place the end of the fabric under, and keep in mind we're not going to the edge of this tab right here, we're going to the about 1/4 inch of the edge from the fabric and the zipper tape itself. So we're really just butting it up to the zipper. And since I don't have a zipper foot in, it won't get super close, and that's okay. So as you can see, that is the zipper pull. You can't really sew around this thing. It's kind of annoying. It takes up a lot of space. So you just have to adapt to where it is at any given moment when you're sewing a zipper. And right now it's at the beginning. So we're just gonna push it down a little bit like that. You can't really see it. You're mostly doing it by feeling. And we will push this back up right when we get this done in a moment. So go ahead and get started with a couple of stitches. Do your back stitches and we will get into sew. So here's the zipper head, the pull. You're gonna pull that up. So as you can see, I was down here. I'm just lifting the presser foot up to give it space while the needle is in the fabric. And then pulling the pull up, out of the way. And we don't have to worry about that on this side anymore. And continue. Half of our zipper pouch. It looks pretty good. We can always make sure at any point in the process our zipper still works. Woohoo! And if you don't have an iron, you can finger press this, so just push it down. It'll make it look more crisp. Now we're going to do the other half of the zipper sandwich. We're gonna do the exact same thing on the opposite side. So doing the same thing that we just did, we're gonna start at one end and line it up to the edge of this presser foot right here. That's where the edge of the cotton fabric is going to be. Do a couple of stitches to get started, and then sew. Now remember, this is the bottom of the zipper. We don't have to deal with the zipper pull yet. We have some stretch happening here. So usually you don't want to have this little flop of fabric right here, but that's okay. We're just going to let it smush out. And remember, we have a zipper pull coming up. So with the needle in the fabric in the down position, lift the presser foot up, pull open the layers, grab the pull, and then just gently pull it back away from the presser foot. And that way you don't have to sew around it because it's very chunky. Finish our seam, do a little back tacks, and that one's finished. So this is what your pouch should look like at this point. It's not really gonna look like a pouch yet, but if you open it up, we can see there's something going on here. And when you add the tabs for the zipper, it looks pretty cool. It's got a good contrast to it. And of course, at every step, gotta make sure our zipper works. If you get the fabric really close, it's okay, but as long as it's not actually in the teeth, you should be fine. It happens though, and if it does, you just take that out and do it again. So we're just finger pressing this down so it's more crisp. And now we're going to fold the zipper sandwich together. Before we do that, we want to make sure to open the zipper because we're about to sew this thing inside out shut. And if we don't leave ourselves a way to get back in, you might have to seam rip, and that's not fun. So pull it open about halfway and just leave it like that is. So remember, open before you close this thing. So now we are going to align our pieces and pin all the way around because we are about to do 3 sides of this rectangle to finish this. So we are about to sew the 3 sides of this rectangle right here. Now, I don't want to start right here because this is a lot of fabric and it's not going to want to fit under my presser foot. So I'm actually going to start in the middle and go one way, and then flip it over, start in the middle and go around the other way. And I will show you why. So again, make sure to note where your 1/2 inch mark is. This is a little bit more than what we did for the zipper. So for me, it is to a specific line. You can also mark this with a Sharpie. And then do our back tack, and so, pulling out the pins as we go. So when you get to the corner, we want to put our needle into the fabric, so it's all the way down, lift the presser foot, and pivot. So if you pivot too early or too soon, you're not gonna land right on the 1/2 inch mark, and that's okay, because that takes practice. Each stitch is gonna get you in a specific place, like before or after that. So just keep practicing that. Now, we've already turned our corner, and we're just gonna keep sewing. And we're gonna end at the zipper. So I'm gonna take this out, and I'm just gonna hold it with my fingernail and just kind of feel where it is. We're almost there. My machine kind of stopped right here on its own, and I'm going to listen to my machine, and I'm going to stop. Here is our finished zipper pouch with our contrasting zipper tabs on the edges. Remember, you don't have to do this step. If you don't want to deal with it or you don't have fabric for it, simply skip to the zipper sandwiching steps and go straight to those. So you can experiment with adding a lining, trying different sizes or depths or widths of zippers. You can also use different materials like pleather or faux fur if you want to get really funky, and just have fun with it. See what different prints and different combos you can do. You can also turn this into a purse. If you made this a little bit bigger and added some straps to it, you would have your own bag. And there's no need to spend any money on accessories. Thanks for listening, y'all. Have fun. Happy sewing.
If you would like to learn more about any of the tutorials you've just watched, you can find these and many more great books at the Nashville's Public Library. If you have a valid library card, you can also check out ebooks and audiobooks through the Libby and Overdrive app.